Your Excellency, Dr. Irfaan Ali, President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana, Vice President, the Honorable Dr. Barra Jagdeo, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the Honorable Hugh Todd, our Foreign Secretary, Mr. Robert Prasad. I'd like to also acknowledge Mr. Fazal Joe Youssef, Advisor on Investment and Diaspora Affairs to the Guyana Consulate in New York. Ladies and gentlemen of the media here and back home, and our counterparts also joining us from various parts of the region, welcome to this press conference. We are coming to you live from Hilton JFK in New York. Over the past few days, President Ali and his high-level delegation have held a series of bilateral discussions aimed at strengthening cooperation, advancing Guyana's development agenda, and highlighting Guyana and her people. I'm sure you've listened and were able to tune into President Ali's enthralling address to the United Nations yesterday, where he spoke of, among other things, climate change and its impact on small island developing states and low-lying developing countries, the disparity in the distribution of the COVID vaccines. He also addressed the eradication of poverty, the banishment of racism and gender discrimination, and Guyana's position on the Venezuela border dispute. It has been a very eventful week for our President. I would like now to invite His Excellency to deliver his statement, after which we will take your questions on same.
Thank you very much, Suelo. First of all, let me welcome the members of the media to this morning's press conference. As Suelo would have said, we have had a long week of representing Guyana, not only at the UN, but starting from last week, a CELAC meeting. And we had the opportunity to interact at the bilateral level with many leaders. As you know, COP26 is an important forum coming up in November. Our Vice President is working on issues in relation to the climate change and environment in the context of oil and gas. So we are mobilizing support around climate change and also Guyana's position. We had the opportunity to explain our position, to interact with other leaders, and to have a common agenda moving forward. On the issue of climate change, we have re-established point of contact with the Maldives, for example. Yesterday, we have been able to set up technical working group between Guyana and many other countries, including Colombia. We had discussions with Kuwait, and many Latin American countries. Of course, many of our sister states in CARICOM, so that we can have a cohesive strategy going into COP26. We also had a lot of discussions at the bilateral level on vaccines, the inequitable distribution of vaccines, and now, of course, the importance of ensuring we all get out of the of COVID-19 and mitigate against the socio-economic fallout that can come our way. In addition to that, we had many interactions with private sector groups, major financial institutions who came together and wanted to have a better understanding of where the country is going, where the economy is going, what are the business opportunities. So out of that, you would see a flow of different delegations coming from different parts of the world to Guyana to do, as you may say, in local terms, to do an on-ground inspection. So they're coming to do an evaluation physical evaluation of what the opportunities are, not only in oil and gas. We have spoken to many of these investors, sophisticated investors, about the opportunities in food security, agriculture, the services industry, manufacturing, and of course, the diversification of our energy sector. So it has been a long week putting Guyana and the opportunities Guyana has and on the international stage, and the response has been enormous. We have had to manage time very carefully. We still have a lot of meetings and requests for bilaterals. We have a delegation that would leave Guyana that was invited by the president of Ghana to be in Ghana. That delegation will be led by the vice president. That's an important engagement in Ghana to deal with the oil and gas sector, and also to see how we can have technology transfer and integration between the two countries. Then we have the president of Kenya and a delegation who will be coming to Guyana in a few weeks' time. Then, of course, we have about 6 or 7 other delegations that will be coming out of this week of engagement. We also had very, very good meetings with various representatives of the Middle East, from prime ministers to prince and so on. And they too are working on delegations to come to Guyana, and for us to have also further engagement with them in a wide cross-section of economic opportunity. From all of the meetings, it is clear that Guyana is an area of high focus. Our country is playing on a different stage. Our country is getting a different level of attention. Our country is being focused on. And as leaders, we have to ensure that we give clear clarity as to where the country is going. Strong leadership is required. We have to ensure that the country is built on foundation of democracy, stability. This is a key question from all those we engage in. They want to know that the country is built on a foundation of democracy, stability, the rule of law. From all the engagement, it is clear that persons were following the 5 months, and of course it raises questions about them in terms of the sustainability of a country when you have democracy threatened the way it was threatened. So we had to repair a lot of damage also. We had to answer a lot of questions in relation to that, but we are very happy that we had the opportunity to do so, and we were able to present Guyana as a strong emerging market, not only for oil and gas, but for the various opportunities that are coming ahead. Importantly, we also had the opportunity, and we'll have the opportunity all day today, to engage with members of the diaspora. As you know, this is an important part of our governance framework. We recognize the importance of the diaspora, and from all the meetings we have had with all the leaders, more than 12 leaders and large institutions, they too recognize the power of Guyana's diaspora. And the growth of our country would require a far larger population that we have back home. And the first go-to population will be the population in the diaspora, for your skills and for you also to be involved in what is taking place. We have said it before that our local content policy would capture your energy, your resources, and your ability also to participate in the economy. So I want to stop here because, we only have an hour for this press conference, so we can take as many questions as possible. But I want to thank members of the media who's been following this very closely. I think Guyana has benefited tremendously, and we are very, very pleased with all the meetings we have had so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. As our president indicated, we only have an hour allotted for this press conference. And so now I will permit questions only on the president's statement. And we will begin first with our colleagues in the room. So who would like to ask your first question, the president? Okay, the president has indicated he will respond to any question that you might have at this time. Okay, great. So please utilize your emoji to, you can raise your hand that way, so I'll see you and identify you. As usual, when you're identified, please indicate where you're from and your name as well. Adam Harris, please go ahead, sir.
Very good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Mr. President. I haven't spoken to you in more than a year. I listened to your statement, and you talk about developments in oil and gas, and you talk about developments in climate change. Now, one of the issues has to do with the fact that ExxonMobil, they say, is impacting the environment by its flaring. Have you had any chance to talk with the operators of ExxonMobil about this in your climate change discussion, sir?
Well, Mr. Harris, you know we have dealt with this question locally. Our credentials have, as I have said in my United Nations address, on climate change would not change. Our activism on climate change would not change. And we are going to pursue an agenda that will see the development of our oil and gas sector without affecting our agenda on climate change. And that is what we took a lot of time to explain. And that is what we took a lot of time to engage other leaders on. And we have been able to demonstrate to them that our plan for renewable energy, our plans in the area of standing forests, our aggression in supporting the world in coming to a decarbonized environment is as strong as it was in the past. So in terms of the flaring, we have engaged Exxon locally, and you know that there were changes. And I'll ask the Vice President, because he led on those discussions, he's explained this before, to once again go over this in relation to how we address the issue of flaring in Guyana.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the matter has been aired extensively in Guyana. On the particular issue raised about flaring and Exxon impacting the environment through flaring, we have demonstrated how we are going to approach this in Guyana. So we believe in a no flaring policy, but it's not just talk. Exxon had secured 2 permits for the Liza 1 and Liza 2 development, environmental permits. When we got into office in August of last year, we were faced with the situation of having to issue a license for Payara and an environmental permit for Payara. We examined the licenses, the environmental permits that were issued prior to us assuming office, and we found they were very deficient. And so we set about in that short period of time, within 6 weeks, to fundamentally change the environmental issues surrounding the development of the gas fields. So in the new environmental permit that was issued, which is substantially different from Payara, the Liza 1 and Liza 2, we have now introduced a tax for flaring that was not there before. And we have now established that beyond the commissioning period, any of the FPSO, any flaring that is done will be taxed at $45 per metric ton of carbon emitted. Now, this very few countries in the world managing the oil and gas industry has such a tax that's based on the carbon emission. And there's a second component to the fine, that we will also receive payment for our share of the gas flare. So that was introduced in the permit. Secondly, we had a commitment now, not just a commitment, but a permit obligated Exxon to manage their waste from cradle to grave. Now, you recognize that in many countries that the waste is left by oil companies for the countries to handle after they're gone. So in the new environmental permit, Exxon would be responsible, the oil and gas operators, for handling all of that from cradle to grave management of waste, including through their subcontractors. The third component that we introduced in the prior work permit was to manage to treat wastewater up to a international standard before it's discharged or re-injected. I can go on, there are many other features. I will not do so to show the improvement in the prior license that was not there. The environmental permit that wasn't there prior to us assuming office. So we're dealing with the question of flaring.
Thank you, VP, for responding to that question. Our next question will come from Kurt. Kurt, you may ask your question now.
Thank you, Sual. Kurt Campbell from the newsroom. Good morning, Mr. President. You've spoken about vaccines and the equitable distribution of same over the last few days on the international scene. However, at home, we have a situation where thousands of Guyanese are still awaiting the second dose, have been vaccinated with first dose, and are awaiting the second doses of the Sputnik V vaccine. I wanted to know what assurances can you give us at this time in relation to another shipment of the second doses of Sputnik V? And I have a second question that I will also ask now. The Essequibo businessman that was shot dead by the SWAT unit just over a week ago is being buried today. And there has been calls for an independent investigation into that incident. I wanted to know if you would support that.
Thank you very much, Kurt. First of all, let me say that we have, from the inception, dealing with vaccination and the pandemic, we have tried to, as you know, we have tried to get any vaccines. We tried Pfizer, we tried Moderna, you name the vaccine, we tried. We were able to get AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Sputnik in initial phase. Now, we have been engaging the suppliers, we've been engaging Russia to ensure that we have a steady supply. As of now, we are expecting, based on what was told to us, in the next 5 to 6 days, we are expecting a shipment from the suppliers. And this, trust me, every night we are on the phone directly dealing with this, talking to the ambassador of Russia, talking to Russia directly, talking to every stakeholder who can assist in this. And that is an important part of our agenda too. So within the next 7 days, we expect to have a shipment of the component 2 of Sputnik vaccines. Now, in relation to the issue in Essequibo with the police and the businessman, I have already made it very clear that there'll be an impartial investigation, that the police would have to act professionally. I think the Commissioner of Police would have already issued a statement that this matter is being dealt with by the Office of Professional Responsibility. I saw a news item yesterday where something has been sent to the Police Complaint Authority. So on my return, I'll have a full update on where this matter is. But as I said before, we are going to ensure, we're going to support, because the police has to do a professional work. We're going to support a thorough investigation, and let us await the outcome of the police investigation. Sometimes we move quickly to cast judgment or condemn the operations of the police, but let us see what comes out of the investigation. And on my return, this is one of the matters that, of course, will be priority on the agenda. I also, I think the Minister of Home Affairs would have engaged the family. On my return too, I would like to have that opportunity to engage with the family and the community. As you know, we have not shied away from any of these issues. Our philosophy is engagement, and I'll be engaging the family and the community also.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll take, before I go back to, yes. Please go ahead, sir.
Yes, Roshan from Abidjan, Libya. And I want to say thank you, Mr. President, for coming and visiting our diaspora and addressing all of our questions. Thank you to our Vice President, Mr. Todd, and our side. Mr. President, my question is, you've spoken about the vaccine and Sputnik vaccine. One of the things that we have been dealt with over here is the new variant of the virus that's coming out, and also new variations or additional vaccines that will be coming at the end of the year. I know lots of our folks in Guyana are still waiting on the second vaccine, the second shot, and there have been talks about possibly a third shot. Do you see Guyana possibly getting the second shot and third shot in a timely fashion? That's one. And also, from the radio, we have been getting a lot of questions about the Sputnik in Guyana, where a lot of folks who are traveling from Guyana into places like Canada, where Sputnik is not accepted. Vaccine like Pfizer and Moderna. So is there a possibility of Guyanese who are traveling getting those kind of shots as well?
Well, we have addressed this matter with the UN Secretary General. I've addressed this matter in my address to the United Nations. We cannot polarize the world based on type of vaccine. And that is what is happening. And more, this is looking like it's changing its dimension. And more and more, it's changing its dimension, and in changing its dimension, it's moving away from the health issue to business issues and all kinds of things. Because I've had discussion with many leaders in this visit, and they're very concerned, and they're very concerned and very hopeful that the matter does not now move from a health issue to a business issue also. And we're concerned about that. The developing world is concerned about that. Whilst we're talking about getting second shot and fourth shot, there's a high percentage of the world population that has gotten no vaccines at all. So we're working on this. We're working on this. We're working on this aggressively. The developing world is coming together to address this issue. Now, we have been able in Guyana, and you will see reports coming out that to handle this pandemic in a different way. We have been able to bring the balance, keep the economy going. We have more than 67% of the population with first dose. We have close to 38, 39% of the population with a second dose. We're working on bringing in the component 2. We expect, as I said, within the coming week, more of the second dose, the component 2 of Sputnik vaccine. We have made a decision that the initial phase of Pfizer that came into the country would go to the children between from 12 to 18, and that is what we've been doing. That is the program we've been rolling out. Now, we are following the science. Whatever we are doing has to be backed by the science and supported by the science. The science said, any vaccine you get, to take it. When we first handling the pandemic, that was the first response. Whatever vaccine is there, take it so that we can get out of this pandemic. Now, the issue of the third dose, that is something we'll have to examine. There is no clarity on it. There is no clarity on how effective the third dose is. But if the third dose is necessary, especially dealing with the variations of the virus, then we'll have no hesitation in investing in the third dose too, because the life of our people matter. So if the third dose is required by the end of the year, the government is prepared to adjust its financial programming to make the investment in the third dose for the safety of the people. As of now, we want Guyanese to take the vaccine. It minimizes the chances of hospitalization and further minimizes the chances of death. And whatever is necessary, to keep the population safe. We are not going to spare that investment. We have made this very clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, please permit me to take questions from two of our representatives online. I'll go with News Talk Radio, after which we will take a question from Sharma from Canada. So News Talk, please go ahead.
Good morning, Dennis Chabral, News Talk Radio, Demarares. Mr. President, can you say what explanations have been given by the EPA about why there is no need for an environmental impact assessment for the construction of the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, and to what extent you support those explanations? And sir, could you say what's your response to positions being taken by your detractors that the killing of Mr. Boston marks a return of extrajudicial killings, especially Afro-Guyanese under the PPP? And thirdly, what would you say were the major points to convince Ms. Carolyn Rodriguez to rescind her resignation?
Well, first of all, let me begin from the last question. I don't know about Ms. Carolyn Rodriguez resigning. I have never received a letter. I appoint ambassadors, so I don't know what is the question in relation to rescinding resignation. Ms. Carolyn Rodriguez has worked with us, and she has worked this week. She has been very active at the UN. For a matter of fact, a lot of the meetings she was actively involved in setting up those meetings. So I can't respond to something I'm unaware of. But I can tell you, as we speak, Ambassador Carolyn is very actively involved in everything. Right now, she is sitting in a seat at the UN General Assembly because we're here. In terms of extrajudicial killing, let me be very clear on this. The propaganda that was used in the past about extrajudicial killing was dismantled. There was an entire publication, I think, in Starbuck News of every single name and the reasoning behind and the analysis of every single name. In that list, they did not have only Afro-Guyanese. So I'm not going to go back to a position with a false basis. This has been proven. The narrative that was created about extrajudicial killing was a disgusting narrative aimed at discrediting the PPP civic government. It was a disgusting narrative aimed at discrediting the PPP civic government. It has no basis. It was not factual. And we have dismantled this. And for a very long time, it did not come up back after that publication, because the world saw that this was just used as a political tool to discredit the PPP. Our vision in government is to bring this country together. Our vision in government is to develop Guyana in a peaceful environment, in an environment in which every Guyanese enjoys prosperity. So let me start from that. So you can't return to something that never existed. You can't, if you're starting from a foundation of lies, you can't return to the foundation of lies. So I'm not going to go beyond that in responding to this, because there's no basis to respond to it. It has been dismantled. It is a foundation of lies. And I'm not going to return to something that never existed in the first place. Thank you.
There is another question, Mr. President. What explanations have been given by the EPA about why there is no need for an environmental impact assessment?
Well, I don't think that you would be right to say the EPA said no, only the EPA justified and the reasoning. And let me say I have full confidence in the work of the EPA. So you have a Demerara Harbor Bridge there now that is a floating bridge that, of course, and this is in my own analysis that I'm giving you here now, even without looking at the technical report, you have a Demerara Harbor Bridge that is a floating bridge that affects flow, that affects the seabed and everything. That is a big part of siltation and all of this. And you have a bridge now that will be a high-span bridge that does not have anything to do with the flow of water and so on. So it's actually an improvement. In my analysis, it's an improvement in terms from an environmental perspective, from a marine life perspective. It's an improvement from where we are to where we are going. But the Vice President would have also chaired the meeting in relation to some of these transformative projects recently and had an update on that. I don't know if you would like to add anything in relation to the bridge.
Well, I share what the president has said. This is a replacement of an existing project, and the replacement of the bridge will have less of an impact on water flow and maritime organisms, etc. So the key thing is that the road they would have to submit a full-fledged environmental impact assessment for the road. But the bridge in itself, I suspect that the EPA still needs studies done, but has moved away from this position that you need a full-fledged environmental impact assessment for it. What bothers me a lot is this newfound vigilance about environmental impact assessments. We've had an EPA that presided over issuing some of the worst work permits in the past. And we had nothing to say about it for LISA 1 and LISA 2. 25 years, environmental permit was given to Exxon when the law says only 5 years you should give an environmental permit for. So the EPA has credible explanations, Mr. President. I don't think we have to do that. They can go to the EPA website. This is a regulatory body, and they will explain their own procedures, and they're following the law. And the approach is consistent with the law as far as we're concerned. So this is a crucial matter for us moving forward.
Thank you, Vice President. Thank you, Mr. President. We have a question from the room, and after which I'll return to those joining us virtually.
So one of the most notable developments of Guyana over a few years is the development of the housing sector. More schemes are being developed in many regions. However, is there a concern that the land utilization of housing schemes
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. There's always a conflict for and you always have to make a decision on what is the optimal use of land. We came from a position of a serious shortage in housing stock. So we had to build from scratch. And we still have a shortage in housing stock. For a matter of fact, if you go only by the application in the system, you have more than 50,000 new applications in the system. Because we have been able to bring home ownership down to an average age maybe of 30. There was a time in the country when home ownership was not, we could not even aspire for home ownership. But now at 30, every Guyanese is looking at owning their own home, which is a good thing. And we want that to even come further down. That is why we're focusing on young professionals, housing for young professionals and so on. So there is a competition of use, but there is that use has not affected our investments in agriculture or agriculture. For a matter of fact, we are now looking at developing new areas, opening up new areas, specifically for agriculture to address the very issues that you have raised. So with the investment in the new highways, the market access roads, and in the hinterland, and in the inland and so on, those investments will open up new opportunities for agriculture. Those investments will open up new lands for agriculture. And that's an important part of our development agenda. That's an important part of the investments that we're making in developing our security and developing agriculture. By the time we get up to 2023, end of 2023, early 2024, we'll be producing all the corn and soil we require as input for feed for livestock. We have also taken back the lead on agriculture in the Caribbean. So, we have given up the lead on agriculture in the Caribbean. So we are back as a lead for agriculture in the Caribbean and food security. We are working now not only on a national plan, but we are working on integrated food security and sustainability plans for CARICOM, for the region. And that plan will see investment in agriculture in and around the region to reduce the CARICOM food import bill. By 2025. So that is what we're aiming at by 2030, at least reduce it by 25%. And that 25% will be supplied by regional source. And this was a major discussion also, especially with the Middle East, because the Middle East, Brazil supply a lot of their food requirements, especially in meat, livestock. So Guyana is a natural market that can look at investing to meet the requirements of that market. And that market requires some specific intervention, like the Halal Industry Certification Program. And so we are looking at all of that. We're developing a master plan for food security and export. One of the things, though, that is important in relation to food security is our vulnerability to climate change. You know, the recent flooding, for example, took out maybe 80% of our production. In terms of food, we had to spend a lot of money back to farmers to get them to go back to the crop. So those are the type of investments that we are making. Those are the type of balancing. So while the housing program is very strong and aggressive, it is not taking away from the agricultural sector or minimizing the agricultural sector. For a matter of fact, great attention is being paid now the agricultural sector. And that is one of the areas that a lot of the resources from oil and gas will go to. A lot of resources from oil and gas will go to make it competitive and create great opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, we'll take another question from our colleague in the room, and then we will return to those joining us virtually. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Happy Friday. Lakshmi from Let's Talk with Lakshmi TV show and Let's Gap Abby Tunes Radio. Mr. President, my question to you is, while we have so many people living in the diaspora in Brooklyn and Richmond Hill, there's no Go Invest office that someone can go to and perhaps learn how to invest in land or oil or whatever there may be in Guyana to invest in. When would you do something like that is part one of my question. And then the second part would be, would we ever see a Guyana Expo in New York City or Richmond Hill or even Brooklyn, again, where most Guyanese live at, to showcase all of the products in Guyana that one can invest in? Thank you.
Thank you very much. To begin with, let me say that we do have a Go Invest office, and they have been very active. We just came back from Texas. They had a booth there, and it was one of the buzzing booths. We have a exhibition now in the Dubai Expo. For a matter of fact, later this month, Guyana would have a Guyana National Day in that expo. So we're investing a lot in the country profile, but there's a natural traffic that is coming to Guyana too, as a result of oil and gas. But that traffic has allowed the country, the different opportunities of the country also to be exposed globally. So whilst initially the traffic was coming for oil and gas, people are also seeing other opportunities that exist in the country. So there are a lot of expos and there are a lot of business seminars that Go Invest and other the private sector they're doing. What we need to do is to get people more engaged. There is now an American Guyana Chamber of Commerce, AmCham. There's a Canadian Guyana Chamber of Commerce. So the diaspora is very critically interlinked with the development that is taking place in Guyana. We're also investing heavily in the ICT and e-governance. So more and more you will see a lot of government services being offered online and a lot of access to information being generated online.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll take a question now from our friends joining us virtually. Nishat Sharma, please go ahead and present your question to the President.
Yes, Mr. President, good morning. While I recognize that this is your first official visit as President in the diaspora, what further plans do you have, I guess, for in-person engagements considering the pandemic? And secondly, with respect to the Venezuela border crisis or controversy, is there other areas that you can explore in terms of advocating Guyana's position, considering the matter is before a lengthy court process? What other plans are there to continue to advocate for Guyana's position on the world stage? Thank you.
We had some interference in the question there with the echoing. What was it?
Nishat, could you present your question?
Yeah, yes, can you hear me? Yeah, the second part of the question, all right, was with respect to the Venezuela border controversy. Is there other areas in which you can explore, considering that it's before a lengthy court process? What other plans are there to continue to advocate Guyana's position on this controversy on the world stage?
Well, we have made it very clear that we are committed to the ICJ, and that is where the matter is. There is no other exploration or excursion. The ICJ is the determining court for this matter. They've already established jurisdiction, and what we are doing internationally is encouraging Venezuela to participate fully in the process and to say to the world that we are committed to the international rule of law and to the jurisdiction and to the ruling of the ICJ. So that is our position in relation to the border issues, and that is the position I would have reiterated in my presentation at the UN General Assembly and also in meeting with global leaders. I just want to come back to the physical expo. I think you were also asking about the physical expo. Definitely post-pandemic, we will be looking at physical expo, not only in New York, but in many areas where we have large diaspora and great opportunity for business connection and development.
And then the earlier question was about Go Invest
Office.
Is there one in
That's-
Brooklyn or Queens?
No. What we have here is an office within the consulate that deals with the coordination of investment and investment opportunity. And we have Mr. Joe here, who is coordinating all of that.
But you do not have to have a physical office to get services from Go Invest, because you can just post. You don't have to trudge over to a physical office here in Queens. You just go online. We've built the capacity in Guyana for them to respond to your questions. So all you have to do, particularly in this area with the pandemic, is to post your questions, seek your clarification on any issue that you want, labor laws, investment opportunities, etc., and more. So we're not thinking about physical offices, but more services to people.
So, and one thing that we'll be doing too, very soon, we have a team that will be going across New York, well, in Queens, Brooklyn, Atlanta, Florida, that to take the message of where Guyana is going and the opportunities that exist. So very soon you will see that team coming across. They have already started to plan that agenda.
Okay.
So we have a question from a business over here, a large office.
Sorry for that, Mr. President. Sir?
No problem, sir. We have a question from a business owner here in the US who migrated from Guyana, a Guyanese business owner, and want to invest in Guyana through Go-Invest in a substantial way. How would that person look to bring his business into Guyana and invest in Guyana? Would that be through the consulate here, or would he go to Guyana, Go-Invest?
No, he can approach Go-Invest directly, or he can go to the consulate for advice and support.
It's just money.
But it's open. So all he has to do is get his business proposal and submit that business proposal. So an evaluation can be made, and he can be pointed in the right direction. So that's all that is needed.
The reason why he asked the question was he visited Guyana and was unsuccessful in getting an appointment with his proposal. So he reached out to us and asked.
But this is something that is very irksome, because sometimes people, if you have an office, you don't have to meet the head of the office every time because he's busy too. You deposit your proposal, say, I'm interested. You have staff there. You meet with the staff. People walk in. The foreigners can come and do this every day, and they're moving ahead with our projects, their projects, and they go through that mechanism. How could a person not, because he doesn't meet the head of the office, not even deposit his proposal and say, here is what I want to do. Can you advise me? You know, and he has a substantial sum of money. But we have to get real too. You know, sometimes our people, they need personalized attention. What we're trying to do is to make the system work. So you don't have to go and see individuals to get help. You can get help from the system. That is the only way it becomes sustainable in the long run. It's not capricious. And then you can't say, oh, or somebody wants money to get my proposal approved because that's the next thing that comes along. So the people have to cooperate too, particularly in the diaspora. I hear sometimes more complaints than an attempt to use the system that is already there, and others are using it to their advantage who come from the rest of the world.
Thank you. And sorry, just one short little question someone just asked. Is there any plan in lowering taxes in Guyana and also helping, you spoke about the flood that destroyed over 80% of the crops in Guyana. Any plan in expediting or helping that process? Because someone said this morning on our live that, for example, Bora, in Guyana, you pay $150, now they're paying $1,000 for the same amount.
Well, if you had a flood, just imagine that you have a flood that wipe out 80% of your food production. And at the same time, you have an increase in shipping costs of 900% for imports. Nothing that we control. The government don't control the flood. The government don't control the international shipping costs. What happens? In the United States, this morning I was looking at the program, and they were talking about they passed down costs because of shipping and logistics increases. So it is not only Guyana. So you came through a period where you had this massive flood. So supply became less on the market, and demand did not change. So if supply becomes less and demand does not change, automatically you will have an imbalance in terms of price. Now, what we have done, we have already started this program. They're in the second phase now, at looking at persons who had queries. We have already distributed billions of dollars in support to the farmers to go back to the crop. So that has already been done. What they're doing now is that they have a phase that if you have an issue, then you can raise those queries now, and those queries will be sorted out. That is the phase we are now in terms of the distribution. And from the next crop, things will balance out back, and the farmers will get back And there is a time too. I mean, if you want to examine how economy works, when the farmers receive less than $20 for an entire pumpkin, when there is an oversupply, some of the farmers leave their pumpkins in the field because it's not effective to bring it to the market because of the price. They leave acres of pepper in the field because it's not effective to bring it to the market. And that is what we're trying to address. That when we have oversupply, we must have the facilities to do processing. We must have the facilities to do packaging. And that is why we have been giving so much, we're giving so much incentives and for investment in agro-processing and packaging and for the food industry itself. And we're seeing more local involvement, more private sector involvement now in food production and packaging. We have large-scale proposal now for the development of the dairy industry, the livestock industry, the feed industry, agro-processing and packaging. So all of these things are taking place, but it has also to do with exogenous factors, factors that are not in control of the government, external factors. And natural disaster. Flooding is not caused by the government. It's a natural disaster that brings shock to market. Whenever there is a hurricane or an earthquake, there's a shock to the market. And that is how economies work globally.
Yeah, but Mr. President, the president has just laid out all the opportunities that he's trying to open up for our country. He's laid out that we want to move Guyana from a per capita GDP of $6,000 to $30,000 in this decade. To do so, people have to make use of the opportunities. If our diaspora has this mindset about the price of bora only moving, that, especially if, of course, as the president is, if you have flooding, everything will die, the price will go up, it's seasonal. When people plant again, then the prices would come down. But you're losing sight of the billions of dollars of opportunities that others are seeing and coming to Guyana for. The oil and gas industry alone will generate about 30 to 40 billion US dollars of supportive investment to service that industry. He's laid out all the other sectors. Our diaspora keeps talking about, the price moving. And in your programs too, this is not meant to be disparaging. People have to help us, especially people who are on these TV programs, radio programs, to direct them to those opportunities, to say, we can't be complaining forever or else we'll miss out. The president has now directed that we pass legislation on local content in the oil and gas industry. We're having special carve-outs for Guyanese, transportation, logistics, rentals, all of these, or the oil companies can only source these services from Guyanese. That represents billions of US dollars of opportunities for our people. And we still complain about, I didn't get my flood relief yet, although $50 million have been US dollars have been given out. Of course, you have a few people who will dupe the system and some who may not get through because you're talking about 75,000 people receiving it. But we keep doing this, and the diaspora has to help to change that mindset too. And I couldn't help but intervene on that.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a question from someone joining us
Virtually here. Ashley, I'd like to give you an opportunity first, and then we'll take another question from the room before we wrap up.
Mr. President, good morning. Good morning to all. This is Rohanna Ahmad from the Guyana Chronicle. My question has to do with investments, actually. Mr. President, you spoke about new attention being drawn to Guyana and whatnot. Can you say what has been the largest or perhaps most significant proposal that has come to you for investments into Guyana during your stint in the US? And secondly, you spoke about the flood relief assistance being in its query stages, with the second round starting and whatnot. Can you say if based on the queries that are ongoing right now, if there are additional persons who were not catered for in the initial budgeted sum, well, allocated sum rather, can you say if additional monies will go towards a second aspect of the flood relief?
Well, as I've said, I mean, I'm not managing down to the details as to how many persons would have inquired and in terms of the second phase. I mean, you have an entire ministry that's dealing with this. But what I know, the policy is that we are the second phase, and whatever inquiries are made or would be assessed if there is someone who was missed in the initial phase and they're verified, they'll be assessed and they will receive the benefit. That is what I can say to you. And the system is designed to do justice. In this phase, it is to look at all the complaints, look at all the requests, make that assessment, and then implement. That is the direction that has been given to them. I can't say how many would have come in or if any came in at all. Yeah, and the resources is there, has already been earmarked. It is within that $10 billion that we earmark for this program, and we pass in the supplementary provision. So the resources is there for this already. In terms of the size and type of investment, you would appreciate that that we're dealing with sophisticated investors. First of all, we're talking about some of the largest players in the banking system, etc. If you give them a chance, from what I heard, to be honest with you, they will finance everything. They want to do everything that we have to offer. They want to finance all the public sector project. They want to finance all the private sector project. We had to tame that expectation and to make a point to them that there are certain carve-outs for locals. And the type of investment we want to see must include locals. It must have a local content component. We encourage them to partner with local businesses, with the local private sector, because what we have seen from the interest in Guyana, that if they get an opportunity, they will suck up the entire market overnight. There is huge interest, and that is what I want to reinforce from what the Vice President said. They are seeing the opportunities from financing projects, housing and construction, and a new city. Sometimes in Guyana, when I speak about a new city, you get the impression from the media that this is a fairy tale land. They are hungry to invest in a new city. Some of them even brought conceptual design of the new city and what the new city should entail. That is the excitement that is coming to Guyana. And that is the energy that is coming to us, that we have to transform in our thinking and the way we operate locally. So we had to tame a lot of the expectation and create a narrative that we are strongly believe in, that it must be also for Guyana, with Guyana. And the private sector has to have a part of it. So it was not only in oil and gas, food production. In February already, there's great interest in many investors coming into Guyana. They're coming to look at the opportunities. We had a lot of bilaterals. We're from the government level, from sovereign wealth funds around the world, investment funds around the world. They're approaching us to see what the needs are. Some of these funds, they create the opportunity. We can have the highway finance, for example, but they have rules in which the countries themselves must build a highway, must do the work. So these are things that we have to evaluate as a government now to determine what is the best option. For the good thing now is that we have options. There was a time when we did not have options. We have options now, and we can evaluate and make the best decision in the interest of Guyana. And that is what we're focused on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our time is quickly going. As a matter of fact, we're over our time, but I'd like to give Sir another opportunity to my colleague here in the room to present one question and before we close.
I'll make it really simple and brief. So it's been a little over a year now that the PCs gained control of Guyana. What is one accomplishment that you are very proud of since being in office?
Well, let me say this. To answer that question would be unfair. It will be unfair to every sector because every sector has really performed well. But the one accomplishment we are particularly proud of as a party is the way we came together as a country to protect democracy and to ensure that our country remained on a democratic path. That is the accomplishment we are so proud of from the diaspora and from Guyanese. It is this type of vigilance that would ensure our country remains safe and stable. So if I'm to point to one thing, not an accomplishment, but one thing that we're particularly proud of, it will be this.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, we've come to a close for today. You like to?
And all of that mention, you should list them so that people hear.
Go ahead, Mr.
Because
President.
it's so phenomenal. But maybe, or maybe some other interview, you should list all of this. Because
we'll probably need another hour.
Want to do a couple of because we don't want to go away. Next thing in Guyana, they would say, oh, Ali didn't say anything about the achievements of the government.
We reversed all the taxes that took away money from people's pockets. We have reversed the increases in land fees, for example, all the license fees, hundreds of license fees that we don't talk about that were increased. We have reversed all of that. We have reversed VAT on a lot of essential goods and services. We have reversed VAT on hinterland travel. We have utilities. The VAT was added on electricity and water. We have reversed that. We have given back this children grant, the children's school grant, the uniform grant. We have increased old age pension. We have reinvested in healthcare. For example, we had, when we came into government, billions of dollars of expired goods, expired drugs and medical supplies in a bond that had to be dumped. And guess what? Whilst that had to be dumped, the system had less than 10% of essential drugs. The entire healthcare system had less than 10% of the essential drugs that was needed. Today, the last report I received just before we left the country is on 97%, that 97% of all the essential drugs is available in the healthcare system. Those are things we don't talk about. We talk about the big things, and we're talking about, I'm not even talking about the roads, the investment in agriculture, the support to the sugar workers, and the support to the public service, the return of the thousands of jobs to Amerindians, the return of the presidential grant, the 6,000 house lots, the strengthening of the village economy. So and what we have done is that we're working at two tracks, and this is important. We're working from the bottom-up approach and the transformative approach. We don't have the luxury of time to move in a systemic way from the bottom-up approach to the transformative approach. So we're working on two tracks. We're fixing things whilst we are building into the future. And that is very important. We liberalize the telecommunications sector. For the first time, a private sector entity invested millions of US dollars to take fiber optic cable to SDK. As I speak to you now, guess what is happening? And they talk about discrimination. Guess what is happening as I speak to you now? Because of our investment in ICT and the liberalization of the telecommunications sector, as I speak to you now, when they left office, it took away hundreds of jobs from the call center in Linden. As I speak to you now, the Minister of Finance is signing an MOU in Linden that will see 150 jobs being created in Linden before the end of the year. And by the first quarter next year, 250 jobs in Region 10. That is what is happening as I speak to you now. The housing program all across the country, in one area alone, We have more than 2,000 persons employed. We are out of labor. We have moved from a situation of no opportunity a year ago to a situation now where we are out of labor, out of skilled workers. That is the reality, and we knew this would come. That's the consequences of the development.
In the pandemic.
And exactly, and this is in the pandemic. And of course, and it's not only about, you have noticed, I've spoken about what we have achieved, and I've not mentioned oil and gas once. Because we have a clear focus. Every single head, and we met with many heads, every single head of state I met with, they're impressed with the fact that we are an oil and gas producer, but 90% of our conversation is about taking the other sector forward and how we're going to build the other sectors, because that is where the sustainability comes. Yesterday, we had an exciting presentation about a possible project of transforming the landscape of Georgetown. So people are seeing the opportunities are there. And I must say, and I want to thank also some members of the diaspora who are making use of those opportunities. We have a few of them who are coming to invest in hotels in Guyana, and they will do well. They will do well. And we encourage them, we encourage you. We want you to be the first point of entrance and benefit too. So let me thank you. I know this is not like Guyana, and we're at State House doing the press conference, and we can go on for an extra half hour. They charge us by minute here. So I don't want that burden to be held on the guys who put this together. So thank you very much. It was our pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
That was a fantastic way to end. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the press.
We are fixing things while building into the future. Thank you.